Hey guys, Brandon with Whiskey River. I'm here with another Conversations with Friends, and I'm here with David Austin at his estate, I guess, his property here in southern Missouri.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining our conversation.
I'm glad you guys came and showed up. It's good to be here. Good to be talking.
Yeah. So where are we at?
So we're on right on the edge of Arkansas, Missouri. So we're in the Missouri line, or in the Missouri, just about 3 miles maybe. So we're in Washburn, Missouri.
Washburn, Missouri. Which, interestingly enough, there's a Washburn, Wisconsin, only like right down the road from me. So it was when I GPS'd it, I was like, it just kept defaulting to the one I always put in. But yeah. So are you? This is your first event you've held here for axes, right?
Yeah. So we Travis called and reached out and said, hey, what do you think about having a bunch of guys come over and just kind of having a meet, you know? And I mean, I've seen some of these guys on TikTok and of course Axe Addicts and some of the pages and stuff, Instagram, and didn't really know anything. Of course, I've purchased some of your handles and didn't know anything about anybody. But Travis wanted to get together and he was like, hey, can you host? We have a big enough place. And so I was like, let's do it.
Yeah. How long have you been here?
So we've been here on this property about going on 4 years.
Okay. Is this region of the country, kind of where you're born? Or, would you be home?
Yeah. So Pea Ridge, Arkansas is just 6 miles away, 5 miles away. And we call that home. It's where I was raised my whole life. And so went to school, graduated with at Rogers, not too far. And this is kind of home. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You've got some guinea hens that are running around, so we might have some noise in the background, some squawking of sorts, and there might be some chickens that come over and visit. So, but where are we sitting on your property? You mentioned this environment that we're in.
So this is my woodshed. Of course, we process a lot of things right here. I've got a lot of rounds and things that I've cut. Property has lost a lot of trees over the last year, and so I just bring all of them here and then process them and get it ready for burning. But this is also kind of like my place of solitude, and if I want to get away and just kind of think, I can come out here and just spend some time, talking to the man upstairs, or try not to talk to myself.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of that. When you're splitting wood.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. This is, you store your wood in here, and you're processing with an axe. I see a hydraulic splitter over there.
Yeah. So I have a hydraulic splitter that was gifted to me when we bought this property.
Okay.
The older couple, he told me, he said, you know what, I'm moving to Texas. They were in their upper 80s, and he's like, we don't have any use for that in Texas, so why don't you just keep it? So I have never even used it.
Oh, really?
I've got some neighbors that were like, hey, can we borrow you? And I'm like, yeah, sure. But I've never even used it. So most of this I split, by hand. But,
and it's oak. It looks like a lot of oak.
Yeah. Of course, green splits a lot better than some of this. So, yeah.
Cool. Firewood wise, I'm like a firewood nerd lately. Are you burning this in outdoor fire pits, or are you burning this indoor?
Both. Both. So I have an outdoor fire pit, but we have a lot of people to come over and hang out with us, and we do some entertaining some, and so we'll use some of this for that. But we also have supplemental heat, and so I have a wood burning fireplace on the inside of the house, just for supplemental. But propane is so expensive. Mm-hmm. And firewood is free.
Yes.
Yeah. So I've been burning a lot more wood the last couple years, trying to, keep my propane expenses down.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll burn about, I would say 2 cord a year, which
fits in this shed.
Yeah, easily.
Yep.
So I'll burn about 2 cord. Some places you probably burn. A lot more than that.
If we don't count the boiler, if we pretend like there's no boiler and we just do our indoor, which is what heats our indoor or our house, we do 3 cords a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which last year was the first year for that. and it was a very mild winter in Wisconsin. So I burned 3 cords. I would assume it's probably gonna be like more 4.5 if we had like a typical, northern Wisconsin winter. But still, it's interesting that you do go through 2 cords because
yeah, a couple years ago we had some of the coldest temperatures that we've ever had here in this region. In fact, it killed many of our boxwoods and crepe myrtles. Most of them did not survive. But it got down to here on the mountain was about 20 below.
Yeah, that's crazy for down here.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And
houses aren't built for that here.
No.
To handle that cold.
That's right. And so yeah, we struggled in that at that time. But I had a lot of wood, and we burned a lot of wood during that season. And it only happened. It lasted about 3 days, I think, is what those cold temperatures. But yeah, it killed all of our boxwoods and crepe myrtles. They only came back from the roots.
So those trees are just not like made to get that cold.
No.
I'm not familiar with either of those species. So
Yeah,
it's just a warmer climate tree.
Yeah. Shrubs and stuff like that. So I lost all those.
Froze out. Wild.
So I think last year we got down to about 7 below last year for this past winter. So we had a pretty mild winter. It wasn't too bad.
I think nationwide there was as I'm talking to guys, it seems like everybody kind of had a mild winter. But last year in Wisconsin, we had record snowfall in northern Wisconsin where we're at. So it was like record snowfall, and then the next year record low for snowfall.
Yeah.
So it's like I think it was 7 feet was our recorded amount of snow, and then the next year we had 17 inches. It's like a big swing.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Yeah, it's not like we moved to a new climate. It's the same environment. So yeah, it's I didn't realize it got that cold down here.
Yeah. So that was one of the big things, that when we started like getting our chickens and trying to develop kind of the farm that we wanted. The previous owners didn't have any animals. And so I grew up with animals my whole life. So I built a wood shed, and then I built this chicken coop, and still haven't done everything on the chickens that I wanted to. But one of the things that I wanted to do is I'm a lazy farmer. I guess maybe not lazy, maybe energy efficient is what I am.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do is I didn't want to have to make sure in wintertime to run water to them every single day. So what I did was I set up a watering system to where I catch my rainwater and then it goes into this rainwater barrel that has a tank heater in it. And then out of the bottom of that rain barrel, it goes into a hose that goes to a 6-volt pump, which pumps the water into a PVC pipe with little chicken nipples that they drink out of. And then it comes back around to the top of the water tank.
It's constantly moving too, so it's not like getting algae and
that's right.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do is at cold temperatures, if it comes to freezing, I wanted that to kick on. But I didn't want it to go all the time. So what I did was I ran power out here and I put a thermal plug or something like that. It kicks on when it's like 38 degrees or something like that. And so when that kicks on, it gives power to all of those things. So it turns on the pump heater or the pump, and it turns on the tank heater. And even when it was 7 degrees below, it never froze.
And they had water.
They had water.
And you're not moving buckets,
That's exactly right.
buckets on buckets when it's 7 degrees, getting -7.
So even though it was cold this past year, I was so excited to come out here and say, yes, it worked.
Yeah.
And
it did.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. That's awesome. Yeah. I had heard I heard water over there when we were recording up on the deck, and Travis was like, "Oh no, he's got like a cool system that he built." So that's neat. You should share that on TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, because it's kind of like a unique thing. I'm sure it would work in my area.
Oh yeah.
And the chickens, because in our chicken coop, which is about the same size as that, they produce their own heat, so they melt the roof off of the snow. Like there's never snow on top of the chicken coop because their body heat and everything. So we could be
that
collecting.
Would drain down, yeah.
Yeah, we could be collecting the snow, melted snow, into a barrel.
Absolutely.
Well. Huh. Yeah. And you built the chicken coop?
Yeah, built the chicken coop. It was all wood milled from a place just right up the road, And yeah, so we built that, and we're going to build a run, make the run a little bit bigger, a little more elaborate, so that it's a little more stable than what I've got. I'm not too excited about how protected the chickens are right now. So we don't have really any problem with foxes or coyotes or coons coming around. My dogs are right here, so they don't really, we don't have any issues with that.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have our dog roams throughout the day on our little 5 acres, and we don't have anything. We get hawks that'll sit, you'll see like a hawk kind of like sitting up in a tree, and the chickens are like, hawk, run away, you know, so they kind of know that. But yeah, we don't have the coyote or fox issues that we have.
Yeah.
Do you get hawks out here?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have some hawks. But they don't come into this area. Most of the chickens and guineas, they'll stay around here. A lot of the hawks are in the front part of
like
our
the
property.
more open part. Yeah. Interesting. The axes. So that's what brings us together, is axes and all of the other folks who are jib-jabbing with each other in the shop. What got you into axes?
So years ago when I was a kid, I grew up on a large farm. 350 acres or so, and I was only child. And through the summers when I was out of school, I was by myself all summer long. Mom and Dad was at work. I was the only child, like I said, and so I took care of the farm. So we had 150 head of cattle, had 17 horses and all this stuff. And so once the chores were all done, man, I ran and played.
Explore.
And and I was I rode the horses all over the place, and then I fished and hunted and all of that stuff. Well, I always wanted a hatchet, and so I had this older neighbor lady that lived right there by us, and other than her, my closest neighbor was like 2 miles away. And so I was talking to Naomi. Her name was Naomi.
Okay.
And she was very unique in that she was like 82 years old, but back in the day, she was a Dallas Cowgirl cheerleader.
Oh, wow. Did she have a farm, or was it just a house?
That was her farm.
Okay.
And so she was very close friends with my mother. And so we went out there and took care of her because her husband had died.
Okay.
And so she didn't have any kids or anything like that. And so we were taking care of her and then farming the property as well. Well, anyway, Naomi told me, she said, you want a hatchet? I have a catalog. You can order one. So I ordered this plum hatchet many years ago when I was a kid. So I've been like 35 years ago. 45 years ago.
Okay, like elementary school.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So when I was really young, and got that hatchet, came with the sheath. Man, I carried that thing everywhere. And so of course used the mess out of it. Grew up as I was growing older. Axes became a tool. It was something that you used, and you could use it with your hands to supply something that would bring your entire family comfort.
Yeah, definitely.
And so it became something that was very much like what a typical man would want to provide.
Yeah.
And so I kind of saw it as that. Life changes. I moved off the farm, did some things for many years. Now I have my own farm. And so I go right to that axe that my dad gave me maybe 25 years ago. So I go to this axe. I see Travis is collecting axes and stuff, working on. And so I'm like, I wonder what this axe is. I knew nothing about them. I just knew how to use them. That's it. So I'm like, I send Travis a picture. It's a double bit with phantom bevels. It's a bluegrass, Belknap bluegrass double bit. And I said, hey, this is my axe that my dad gave me. He gifted it.
What a great choice your dad had.
Yeah.
For an axe.
Yeah.
It's kind of iconic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was like, I said, is this anything
Special?
worth anything? Yeah. He's like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's a great axe.
Yeah.
Especially that it'd be your first one.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what kicked it all off. Mm-hmm. And from there, it's kind of morphed into some other stuff.
Yeah, you're into like vintage signs and vintage hand tools and just eclectically pleasing vintage things, it seems.
Yep.
So did you, when you I'm assuming this based on what I've seen since going through your collection or seeing your collection. You like stuff with etches.
So
or
I do.
some sort of story of like
Yeah.
where they came from.
Yeah.
So when did you start getting into that, or was that because the Belknap bluegrass?
No, I had no clue
Okay.
that etches on axes even existed.
Wild.
I did not have a clue.
Just a little plum. Just a
Yeah,
little plum
yeah. I was like,
stamp on
oh
here.
look, it's got it says Belknap bluegrass,
Belknap,
you know.
yeah,
And then you see the one that said plum or
Yeah.
you know, or something like that. That's all I ever saw. And then one day I was like on Facebook or Instagram or something, and I saw an etch for the first time, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, this is wild.
And so what really got me into it though was the history of thinking, okay, there was a reason why these axe companies would put etches on there. And there was a reason why they would make some of them as a more elaborate than the other companies. And so it was very intriguing to me, the marketing aspect of things, how they were advertising and, hey, you know what, if I put a man swinging on an axe and call it a champion, then maybe that will sell more than this Black Raven over here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so, you know, the competition in that regard was really intriguing to me to think that 100 years ago.
Yeah, it was very rudimentary in marketing. It's like we can't just tell them it's the best.
Right.
Like via a catalog.
Right.
We have to make it look as though
Right.
unquestionably
Yeah.
it's got to be the best.
Oh,
'cause it's
yeah,
got
this
like
is the perfect axe.
Yeah, like the Cayuga would be a perfect example, the one that you have,
Right.
the Swamper Peel or whatever on the, it's like a big embossed etch on it. And it's like, no one's going to look at that and be like, that's probably just junk. It probably
Right.
doesn't work. You know, it's kind of like that. I always say it's like the King Ranch of
Right.
axes. You know, it'd be like someone pulling up to a job site with a King Ranch. It's like, oh, well, he must be serious.
Yeah.
Because he has a
Yeah. Oh,
he has
yeah.
a truck with stitched leather
Yeah.
seats, you
Yeah,
know, or
that's
whatever.
absolutely.
And I like the fact that 100 years ago they leaned into that. They decided that they were going to how do we get guys to like flex on each other
Right.
on a timber crew or
Right.
neighbors, you know, like you know, this farmer buys this Black
Yeah.
Raven.
Oh, you mean you drive a Dodge?
Yeah,
Oh, Dodge.
Dodge,
Okay.
yeah.
No, you swing a Black Raven?
Yeah,
What?
exactly. So I think that, you know, 100 years ago, like people were still riding horses around.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like cars have not been available to the average American. You know,
Right.
wealthy people had vehicles.
Yeah.
You know, in the 1920s, but most of Americans are still on horseback or
Yeah.
walking.
Yeah.
And so you had the culture there still that we have today of like the consumerism or that
Yeah.
style of marketing of being like, this is the best because
Yeah.
it's flashy, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of what intrigued me about it all. Just getting in the thought pattern and idea of what things were happening from the late 1800s all the way to 1950s.
Yeah, the war really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so all through that era, and seeing the differences, and then also noticing, you know, this is a first edition. This is what it looked like the first time, and then this was when you know, the company was bought by a different company, and it was sold, and so
Yeah.
then they changed the etch to this, and you know, the fork and hoe company.
Yeah, and
things
manufacturing
like that.
processes changed.
That's
you know,
exactly right.
Like as Ed has that deep beveled, perfect Kelly perfect axe.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that how that axe was made versus your Cayuga. It's like
Totally different.
completely different manufacturing
Yeah,
process.
totally different.
And they're not that much. There's not that much range.
Right.
It's not like they're 200 years apart. They're only 40, 50 years apart in
Right.
In that. Is most of the stuff you collect pre-World War II?
Yeah, most of it is. You know, it's one of those things where I kind of like to have the different versions. Like if it's Black Raven, you know, you've got the original, and then you have when the American Fork and Hoe Company took over. Black Raven doesn't mean anything to a lot of people in regards to if you are a user.
Yeah.
If you're a collector, it's something totally different. So it's not that the value is in the Black Raven piece. The value is me as a collector, right? So the value is how do I value this particular piece in my collection, and how much do I want that, and do I have the money?
Yeah.
You know, a
and
lot of
if,
people,
or if you're selling it, how much is it going to take for this to be released from
That's exactly right.
my playing card collection? It's
Yeah.
anything, you know. You've got like the different editions and stuff. It's like that's, I think a lot of people don't grasp. Like, why are Black Ravens selling for $1,000? It's like, well, that's how much it cost me to talk David Austin out of one of his Black Ravens.
That's it.
That's the market decided it.
That's right.
And it's a bunch of individuals who have them.
Yeah.
They like them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's some axes that I will never sell. We're talking about the Cayuga, the peeler or swamp or whatever you want to call it. That particular head, or that head, that came to me from a friend on my 50th birthday.
Okay.
So I've had that particular axe has been chased after, if you want to call it that, and people have been trying to buy that from me for quite some time. And I
was going to try to buy it.
Yeah, I just can't sell it.
I can imagine.
That's the thing. I just can't sell it. And the guy that was the friend that sent that to me. He sent that to me. He bought it for $100 in North Carolina.
Wild. Yeah.
And he was standing at a register in a flea market, and an old man walks in with a wagon full of old tools. And in that wagon, it's walking by, and my friend says, his name is Miles. Hey, is that an axe? And so he pulls it out and he looks at it, and it wasn't cleaned up or anything, and it was this Cayuga. And he was like, how much do you want for that? He goes, well, I was going to put $100 on it. And he goes, I'll buy it. And so he paid him $100.
Never hit the shelf.
Yeah, and Miles boxed it up and sent it to me. Miles did not know that axe shows up on my 50th birthday. And so I get this package on my 50th birthday, and there's this axe. And I'm like, Miles, do you know what you just sent me?
Yeah. And he's like, just an axe I bought.
Yeah, it's just an axe I bought. I thought you'd like it. And I'm like, thank you so much.
Yeah, seriously.
And it'll always be in my collection, just because, little things like that. It's like that Belknap bluegrass that my dad gave me.
Yeah, you
it'll
can't get rid of
always
that.
be. Yeah, it'll always be there.
Yeah, for sure. I asked Travis this, like, is there a piece that, say you're just cash, you've got a pile of cash. Let's not think about the money part of it, right?
Sure.
But the piece that, like, if it came available, you would be like, yep, I want it in my collection. What is that piece right now?
I would say probably a single bit. Of course, I like the Lincolns. I've had some in the past, but I would really like to have another clean Lincoln. But there's one that I've only seen one time, and I don't even know what the name of it is, but there was a company, a hardware company in Fort Smith, Arkansas.
Oh, interesting.
And they made an etched axe. And I've only seen one in a museum in Fort Smith. And in fact, it was many years ago.
You think they were bought out by someone fast? Like where
I think
they
so.
must not have been?
Yeah, it doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know who that company was, and I don't know the name or anything. I just know it was an etched axe in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And so if I could find something like that, that would be my go-to.
Okay. Interesting. Well, hey, if any of you guys know of one, or you know of any information, more information that can help with that search, like, let us know. Drop a comment. I've never heard of it, and I didn't know that there was a hardware store out of Fort Smith. So there's these little hardware chains that, I think a lot of folks think of it in a modern sense, where they're like, well, if something's stamped Ace Hardware, there's millions of this thing. Like if there's a claw hammer stamped Ace Hardware, like now, like if you go to Ace Hardware or True Value, whatever the big chain hardware stores are, and you see that, it's like there's millions of that hammer out in the world. Well, in the that era that we're talking about, they could have just ordered 10.
Right.
Like Kelly, they contact Kelly, I want this stamp, then they try them, and then they never order more because it didn't work, whatever, and then, or the hardware store company got bought out by a different hardware store company, and then they didn't transfer the name. It's just wild how the world is small now because of the internet and us being able to connect and not knowing each other, but being able to like share experiences. But like back then, the world was very small when it came to manufacturing.
Yeah. Joel Ferguson, Burn Bevel. So we were talking in there. Joel's brought several axes, and one of the axes that he has, I was really glad to see that he had it. Of course, it's a polished head, which he did not do, but it was from Ferguson Hardware.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah, and it's like his
And
last
I'm
name.
like,
Yeah.
that. I mean, that would be like me. My last name's Austin.
Yeah.
Having one that said Austin Hardware. I would never get rid of that. But then the other cool thing about that is Joel is from New York, and it's from Utica, New York.
Yeah, it's like a New York axe with his last name, and it's an axe, and he's an axe guy. Yeah.
And he's like, I should be, researching this a little bit. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really super cool.
Yeah, that's the stuff that really gets me excited.
Yeah.
We've got Zenith Marshall Wells in Duluth,
Yeah.
and then we have Garnish out of Ashland. So where I live in Iron River is halfway between Duluth and Ashland, and Garnish was a hardware store supply company that would supply hardware stores. So you couldn't just buy from Garnish. You had to buy from a general store or a hardware store or a lumber yard that sold Garnish tools. So they're really hard to find in our area because they didn't sell direct to consumer. So they shipped all over the place. So Zenith Marshall Wells sold direct to consumer, and there was a lot of hardware stores in the area that sold them. But Garnishes are so hard to find everywhere in the country. But they're, interestingly enough, there's like a dead zone around us where they just didn't sell because people are like, we would have went with Zenith Marshall Wells, which is, catalog wise, Zenith Marshall Wells was a powerhouse. And they're still a company. I'm pretty sure Zenith is still a company, or maybe Marshall Wells. I don't know. There's buildings in Duluth that say, with more modern signs on them. And that kind of information, learning that was just like, wow, this is crazy that the supply is affected by that. I've never found one in the wild, and I've lived there 3 years now. I'm buying a bunch of axes.
Yeah.
I've found one that was, a nerd can tell that it's a lot,
Right.
but it's gone to the point where it's like, you can't read it,
Yeah. We know what it is.
Yeah.
It's in that shape. You're like, oh, I know what that is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny how some of these places, some of these Facebook posts, people will just, can somebody tell me what this etch? And I immediately look to it and know exactly what it is.
Even if you can't read it.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's pitted.
Yeah, know right what, the shape.
Yeah. Or the size. Sometimes the size of the etch, especially what you were talking about, is like they evolved, where it's like the bluegrass used to have a huge with the horse and the horseshoe and
so I've got that. I've got two of those.
Okay. But then I have some that are like
little bitty,
tiny, like the size of a dime.
Yeah.
Stamped on a head. And so, but the shape of it,
right.
No matter the size, that's like, oh, that's a Belknap.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So
now, how far are you guys from like Red Wing?
That's a good question. I'm an hour from Duluth.
Okay. Well,
Duluth
is not too far from Red Wing.
Yeah, I believe I'm an hour and 40 minutes from Red Wing. I've never driven from my house to Red Wing, so I'm not sure how that works. But yeah, have you been to Red Wing?
Yeah. So I've got a cousin that lives in that area, and I went up and attended his wedding, and so we stayed there in Red Wing. But I really liked going downtown. Red Wing, of course, the Red Wing shoes, boots,
yeah, iconic.
Yeah.
American
so you
company.
drive past the factory, Red Wing factory, and you get downtown, and there's the Red Wing outlet store, which is super cool.
Yeah.
And then right next to it is the Duluth outlet store.
Duluth Trading.
Yeah, Duluth Trading.
Yeah.
And so both places, it was.
You could spend all day in those.
Yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
I definitely could spend all day in those.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
I'll have to go in there. I haven't explored much of northern Minnesota. A lot of my travels took me to North Carolina and everywhere between, a little bit up into the upper East Coast, and then northern Wisconsin was my place to process, if you will.
Yeah.
That was my stacking trade shows when I started this company, where I was like, leave on Wednesday, have the setup on Friday, get the thing done, get back home on Tuesday morning, and then go out again the next day. I would take 2 weeks, and I would stagger those weeks, and I would go to northern Wisconsin. And that's how I was like, during COVID, I was like, let's just move here. You know, we run an online business. We don't have to we don't have to be locked into a store.
Sure.
And but I explored all of that and into the UP. I don't know if you've ever been to the UP. It's actually very similar to kind of north of Duluth as far as like how remote, a few miles out of Red Wing, you're like, it's pretty desolate. So I never really went up that direction, and I'm hoping that in the next year, since we live close, we can get up there and do some camping and hiking and stuff, because it's just Ely, Minnesota is like a tourist town. The Boundary Waters are there. There's a bunch of hunting and camping and fishing and kayaking, and so if you ever get a chance to go back there, does he live there still?
Yeah, he
still live there. Yeah.
Well, I love to hunt, so.
Yeah. It's a wild region of the country that's still kind of frontier-like. I feel like that we, there's elk, and actually there's moose there. Northern,
really?
Yeah, northern Minnesota. There's moose up there, and but yeah.
That's like my bucket list.
Seeing a moose or hunting a moose?
Being able to hunt a moose.
Yeah. Have you seen one in the wilderness?
I have
before?
never seen one.
Really?
I've never seen one.
Where you hunt, there aren't. In Colorado, there's no moose.
No, so where I hunt in Colorado, public land, Unit 62, on the far side of Colorado, near Utah.
You're giving away your spot.
Well, there's a lot of land over there. There's a lot of land.
Unit 62 is pretty big.
Yeah, it is. It is. And everybody would tell you, oh, Unit 62.
They're like, I tried that once.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha. So but there's no. I'm not familiar with Colorado. I'm assuming there's no moose in Colorado. It's just elk.
Well, I think there might be some in the upper northern pieces, but we've never seen anything. Okay. We've never seen any grizzly or anything like that.
So black bear, mountain lion, elk, and deer.
Yeah, mule deer. Some big mule deer, some giant moose. I mean, elk. They're probably not a lot like what you find in maybe New Mexico. We do have a couple of champion trophy units in Colorado, but you're on a 20-year wait list to get into some of those units. Where we hunt, it's over the counter, and it's archery. So we just go and buy our tag and go hunt. The success rate is about 8%.
So they track that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess it's how many tags versus how many tags were filled.
Yeah.
8% is a lot of skunked camping or hiking.
Oh yeah.
Hunting trips turn into camping trips then.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I've been there the last 8 years and killed 3 elk so far. So that's a little bit more and better than what the average. But where we hunt, our family's been going there for 30 years. So our family has found all these wallows and trails, and they know right where to go. And the last 2 years I haven't killed anything, but I took my cousin for the first time. He was first time hunter, elk hunter, and on opening day I called in a 3 cow and a bull for him, and so he killed opening day. And then my brother went for first time, and he killed, and I called in some elk.
So it was okay that you didn't get anything.
I was okay with that.
Yeah, because you're like, they got.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, to me, there's as much joy and pleasure in that. Of course, I'm not going to eat as much. But that's okay. I mean, their family got to eat, and if I had a hand in that, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not a hunter myself, but and obviously nothing against it. I don't want YouTube to think I'm against hunting. I just don't have the time to hunt right now.
Yeah.
Eventually, I'd like to get into it, but I feel as though a large part of hunting is the fact that you were able to call it in.
Yeah.
Like the joy you got of being like,
I can actually talk to these animals,
and
they respond.
And then your brother is able to accurately kill it, and
Yeah.
then you guys are able to process it. It's like that was. obviously there's multiple hands in it, but
Yeah.
you were able to like have that power to,
Yeah.
like communicate.
Yeah,
in that way.
there's skill and time invested in learning how to talk to the animals. So there's a lot of things that go into that. The time of the season. What are the elk doing at this moment? What are the temperatures?
Wind. You were talking about wind last night.
Wind, thermals, and temperatures. So thermals will blow up at certain times of the day, and then as it heats up, it will begin to blow down.
You're saying thermals are like
So that's your wind. So it's as air begins to heat up, the wind will begin to push
pull it
up.
up the
And so as it cools down, it will push down.
right.
So wherever you're at on that mountain, wherever those elk are coming, you've got to make sure that you adjust. So we don't typically hunt the way, and I don't want to get too much into this on the video,
Yeah.
but we don't hunt the typical way that most elk hunters hunt. We do it a little bit different simply because we know all these watering holes, the wallows, and the trails and the direction that most of these elk are traveling in that region, that area.
Right.
So because of that and us having such a track record, I mean, I've got an uncle that's been there 28 times,
Yeah, so-
28 years,
Yeah.
and he's killed 18 elk.
Yeah, he's not like a new guy coming into the woods
No.
being like, so where are the elk here?
Yeah,
he's
he's gonna
like,
say, you sit here, you do this at this time.
You
and
whistle
there's-
like this?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Do a
So-
dance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they just know.
Yeah.
And so we have a great time doing that. And that one of the things that we do, in fact, in camp, is we throw axes.
Oh.
We throw hatchets.
So you hike in
Yeah, we hike in.
and then take some axes with you.
Yeah. So we have a good time.
That's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people, with axe throwing becoming this like pop culture kind of thing, a lot of people will come to me and be like, oh, you sell handles? Like, oh, is it because of the axe throwing thing? Like the average population doesn't
Yeah.
realize that like folks like you and me, like just throw axes.
Yeah.
We're not throwing that cayuga or
Right,
a black
no.
raven, but we've got some like axes that we're okay with throwing at a dead
Yeah, we're like,
a dead
hey, let's
tree.
throw this hatchet. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something to do at camp when you don't have phones.
That's
you
it.
don't have anything to do. You literally there's nothing to work on.
Our game is throwing axes or hatchets.
And
yeah.
then that gets you through to the next morning
That's
or
it.
the next evening when you can go out and try to hunt, or if you fish or whatever the task is that you're doing. Yeah. What is the so when you go there, you're going to the same spot. Have you hunted any other regions out there? I'm trying to get back to the moose thing.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah.
Like where would you find it? Where would David Austin go if he wanted to kill a moose? Like in a dream world.
Well, Alaska.
Alaska?
you
Yeah,
know?
I feel like
I mean,
I was like thinking Canada or Alaska. Yeah.
Canada would be cool too.
Yeah.
I mean, but Alaska would be great.
Yeah, that would be sick. Yeah, totally. And they're obviously there.
So yeah, if you could go to Alaska, if you could hunt, if it would be a Kodiak. Of course, I've got a friend that killed a Kodiak bear there.
Wild.
And this was many years ago.
Okay.
And so that would be really cool. But a moose would be, just absolutely awesome.
Mm-hmm.
There was many years ago, after my father-in-law passed, my mother-in-law, this was prior to me ever having the thought that I could do a bear hunt on my own, right?
Okay.
So my mother-in-law's like, and my brother-in-law hunts.
Okay.
He's a big whitetail hunter
Okay.
in Oklahoma. And so that's kind of what his niche is. So my mother-in-law's like, the father-in-law left some money. I want to pay for you guys to go to Canada and hunt a bear. So we're like, let's
Yes.
go.
Yes.
Come on,
Yeah.
And so she was just wanting to bless us. And
Yeah.
so we never did it. And this was like 15 years ago. And so we never did that. Well, 8 years ago, 8 years ago, I go to Colorado to elk hunt for the first time. And here comes a bear. I bought a bear tag, not thinking that, I'm going to have this opportunity. And so I killed my first bear with my bow, 15 yards. It was not a great big bear. It was more. Now people may say it's a cub. It was not a cub.
Is that the blonde one that we were talking about?
We call it, yeah. It's a cat. It was an adolescent bear.
Okay.
So that's what we're calling it.
Yeah, and it is on the smaller side of a bear.
So the game warden, what they do whenever you it's like a game warden. You have to check in the bear, but you have to take in the whole carcass and all the meat. So they have to check it all. And they take out a tooth so that they can age the bear. So when they age it, they aged my bear at 2 years old, but it was still pretty small. I mean, it was like...
Yeah, it was almost... I mean, I saw the hide. It's like... It just looks like it didn't grow.
No, it was pretty small.
But its hair is like... It's like full-grown bear hair. It's not like it's like a baby by any means, yeah.
So this was a black bear, but it was blonde. Yeah. So the whole thing was a light tan. And just the most gorgeous bear. And it came through, and that was my first bear. And smoked him. Harvested him. Sorry.
Yeah.
and yeah, we ate that bear, and it was great. A lot of people have not ever eaten bear meat, and they wonder, can you eat that? There's a lot of different ways that you can eat bear. So we ate that bear. We actually literally smoked the meat on a smoker, and it processed really well because I think it was young in that way. Last year I killed another bear. It was a black bear, but this was a color phase, what they call a color phase as well. And it was more of a brown, but it was a black bear.
That's the one in the pack, or the pack mount, I guess.
Yeah, pack frame type
pack frame
thing.
Mount,
yeah. So
a lot bigger of a bear.
Yeah. So a lot of people when they process these bear, you're skinning this out in the field. I mean, where we hunt, you're not pulling a side by side up to it and throwing it in the back of the truck.
You're not winching it in the back.
No. So you got to pack this out on your back, and we hunt down. We camp up. So we're at 9,500 camp, hunting about 7,500, 7,800. So we've got about a 12 to 1,300 elevation change within about 2.5 miles. So I kill this bear. We process the whole thing, and a lot of times, and this has happened several times, when you're processing this, you'll see maybe worms or something like that in the meat. And when it comes to bear, that's exactly what you're going to see. They can have these worms, very much like a hog or a pig.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people get turned off by that immediately.
Which, I mean, for like genuine reason.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people
I wouldn't just eat it.
No, like Stephen Ranella and a lot of his crew, they ate bear meat that hadn't been cooked up to temperature, and they got sick. I mean, and the sickness that you can get to that from that is pretty rough.
And it can be fatal.
It's exactly right.
Definitely.
So yeah, I processed this. It had this last bear had a few worms in that, but as long as you take that up to proper temperature, they say 165. I always go to 175. That's just me because I like to
thermometer.
Like You're going into the bigger parts and making sure. But we process that meat into several different options. So the best way that I like it is sausage. So the breakfast sausage is amazing.
Wow.
And so we do that, and we love that, and we love harvesting those animals and allowing that. It's just like when we were talking about axes. So you're providing something. When we split this wood here, we're providing meat. And I don't know if they can see this on camera, but we have a bunch of rounds right here.
Yeah.
And so this is my processing spot. So I bring all my rounds here, and then I just split it and throw it here. But the thing is we're providing things for my family, and I'm doing that with my own hands.
Yeah.
On my own property.
In your time, and it's like your time.
It's my time.
It's your time is for you.
That's exactly right.
To do that.
So it helps me not just process things here. You're not just processing that. You're processing things here, and you're processing things within you.
Yeah, and it's similar with the bear. Like you're processing that bear in the field.
Oh,
you just sacrifice this bear for your family and for you.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I like that.
And here's the thing about that. Our pack out is pretty extensive. I mean, packing that meat out,
Well, that little one, you just you just carried it, right?
Yeah. That was a whole different ball game. Let me
But
tell you.
that big bear, I feel like took effort.
Oh yeah. So we had three guys packed it out, and that wasn't too bad of a deal with 3 guys. Now it's a different story. My bull that I killed a few years ago, there was only 3 of us, and if you're packing out a bull or an elk, if you have a bull, 5 people is the best, because you have one person that has all of his gear, his bow, his pack, but then he's got the head and antlers. Then you have 4 guys that can split up.
They quarter it, really.
Yeah, all the meat among 4 packs. So that's the best way to process them. But we had 3 guys that day.
Oh.
So 3 of us pack out a bull elk. And
multiple trips or just one like
trip.
just heavy? Just packing heavy.
My pack weighed 150 pounds.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy.
That's a hike. Yeah,
but here's the thing about it, you have memories. And you're walking up this mountain, and this is the way I see it. You're not trying to get to the top of the mountain right now. You're only trying to get to that tree over there.
Yeah.
And so I'm just.
And you only have to do it once.
That's exactly right.
You're not like, it's not like the rest of your life you have to do this.
That's right.
Yeah.
So if I can just get to that spot over there,
Yeah.
and I think that's a lot with life is the same way, because if I don't have to get all the way to there.
Yeah.
To the top of the mountain, I just need to get a little more advanced than where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
If
definitely.
I can just get a little further than where I am now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that takes a lot of the pressure off, right?
Yeah. I have this theory, or not theory. I have this saying, this mantra, this whatever. I don't know what it is. For like the last 4 years, I've been saying it, and it's being able to shrink to grow. It's like I got to be able to sweat.
Yeah.
To be able to grow. Like I might have to, it might take me, like for you to pack your freezer and for you to experience this like core memory of your life and the people that you're with, you have to be able to sacrifice this like hard time, and we have it with work, right? It's like with business, you're like, well, I have to, when we moved, it was like, we're shrinking down into a smaller building, but us moving to this region of the country and being in our own building that we're not renting, right? We own the place, allows us to grow in any direction that we want.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get held up with decision making. They're like, or challenges where they're like, I have to home run hit.
Right.
We see it with TikTok, right? You're on TikTok,
yeah.
I'm on TikTok. It's like you post something and it gets 400 views and you're like, come on,
Yeah.
I put an hour and a half into that.
Yeah.
That should have hit 3 million.
Yeah,
You're upset. But like, then I have to think about it as like, if 400 people were standing and walked into this yard right now and were like, hey, I watched your TikTok, and they just lined up.
And we'd be like, wow.
Where did all these people come from, right? And so it's like you have to be able to, I mean, that's adversity and all of that. And
Sure.
with hunting or hiking, just hiking in general, even if you're not trying to pack out 150 pounds, you have to break it up into these achievable things that are challenging versus just being like, well, I told you about Bob Marshall. It's like 140-mile hike. You can't do that in a day. You can't do that in 4 days. You can't do, it's 10 days. That's a hard 10 days, So it's just, I think that with the constant barrage of virality that we do see, it's hard for me to disconnect that virtual life from the authentic life that we're actually amongst. This pile of wood, if we watched someone on TikTok process this, it'd be a minute. This is usually about a minute and a half video. And he's got this whole thing processed and stacked there, and he's sitting around a campfire with like a meal cooked.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But
like, we know it didn't take a minute.
You and me splitting this with an axe is going to take us all afternoon.
That's
and
exactly right.
We're going to be so gassed by the end of it, we're not going to cook anything. We're going to go drive to the diner.
That's right.
And just be like, So
if we can get our fork up to our mouth.
Exactly. And I feel like that's something that is probably a struggle for most people. Just kind of like understanding the context of what you're actually in. What is reality of what we're, the challenges we're amongst.
So when we come back from an elk hunt or something like that, and somebody says, hey, I would love to have some of that, and in my mind I'm thinking they have no clue what it took. To get that elk steak.
Yeah, and it's your experience that you're giving away.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Not just like you're not just like going to the store and buying hamburger patties for
Yeah.
somebody. It's
Oh,
like,
sure. Yeah. Let me just bring you a pack. Okay. Yeah. It's going to be $125. You know.
because of the experience that it
Yeah,
gives me.
that's
It's no
exactly
different than
right.
the Raven. It costs this much to let me release this into your hands.
That's right.
Yeah, it's an unachievable. It's not logical, the price, because there's no price for it.
There is none.
No.
Yeah. There's no way. But yeah, it's a life thing. You were talking about adversity. Adversity makes us all better.
Definitely.
You know, I mean,
It's
adversity
when
is,
we get through it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. And then the question is this, and this is where we are with society right now and our culture. So our culture is I want it now. I want it now. Microwave society, right? And so you have some of these young people that are coming out of school. They've been through very little. Everything is really at their fingertips, and so they can get everything right now. And how much time do they put into? I'm gonna endure. I'm gonna persevere. I'm gonna really put in the effort and time to be this or this or this,
Yeah.
or go through this experience to get to my goal.
Right.
And so we need people like yourself, like me, like other people that do the same things that we do, to share those things, to
Yeah.
teach. I was talking to Gabe with Gabe Throwflies. Is that-
Throw files.
Throw files.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great Grinnell.
Oh yeah, Gabe's a great guy.
Great guy.
And so he was talking about how he was teaching his 7-year-old son, to shape this knife and to build this knife and showing him the trade. And his son was like, "Man, Dad, this is down to 220 grit. I think this is fine." And Gabe's like, "No, it's not quite right
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
So we're going to go all the way to 600 grit." And so they work it and showing your son
He's
and
seeing
teaching
the improvements that it
yeah.
has. Yeah.
And understanding the value behind the putting the extra effort into it. And that's a lot of people don't pass that on, but we need more people that will mentor
Yeah,
and
totally.
pass on those skill sets.
I agree. I think that one thing that I employ a lot of young people, younger than me, and one thing that I see, just as bad as the idea of like instant gratification, is the narrative that they've been shared is if you go to college, you're going to be able to make this much money. There's a gap in between that college and that much money.
Yeah.
That is an undetermined amount of money, or an undetermined amount of time.
Yeah.
Right. So like if you go to engineering school,
Yeah.
you can make $150,000 a year, right? And that's
Yeah.
what they're being pitched, the
Yeah.
young people. So they get out, they go to 4-year school, they're dedicated, they make sure they get grades,
Yeah.
they're disciplined, and then they get out and they get an entry-level accounting or engineering job for $40K a year.
Yeah.
And then they're like, they
Yeah.
feel failure.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not because they necessarily want the 150K. They're like, this isn't what I
Thought
was
it was gonna-
told
yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
going to get. Now, that is a college, lifestyle,
And that is
discussion.
yeah, that's a whole nother discussion.
you get, I see it with people that are, it's the same thing as what you're talking about the elk. It's like, someone will say like, "Oh man, I've been seeing you go viral on TikTok." It's like, man, I should post some videos. It's like, dude, I've been posting videos on the internet for 6
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
It's like, we just went viral last November.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's like, there's a long road between you, but they hear the success story of some guy being like, dude, my 3rd video,
Yeah.
went big, and then I got a job, and then I got a new house, and I bought a Lamborghini.
Right.
That story, and that's something that I try to help the kids that are around us be like, hey, listen, you're coming into Whiskey River at this step. This is where I want Whiskey River, but I'm aware that this is a hard, long working path to get there.
Right.
And it's been a journey.
Yeah.
If you were to start working with us six years ago, it was a completely different
Oh, yeah.
thing. So, that's actually, that's a really good point. I didn't, I don't know. I spend so much time around young people that I hear what they're being told
Right.
oftentimes. And people come to work and they'll be like, hey, you're a young guy. Let me leave you some advice. And after they leave, I'm always like, do you want to talk like to the kid, you know, because it's like that advice is kind of skewed in a way. You're like, hey man, like you make sure you better get a good job, or you better join the union, or you better go to college, and it's like, those aren't exactly the freeway to that goal that you want.
That's it.
So, yeah. I want to do a tour of your little. We can show them the things that we've been talking about.
Yeah,
they're probably like,
yeah.
But first, I wanted to leave you with if there's something you want to tell YouTube, my followers, people that maybe will watch it that are your friends,
sure,
or maybe any of the friends that we have here, and then you can kind of roll into where people can find you if they want to follow you on social media. So.
Yeah, so probably the thing that kind of defines what I do in life in general is I feel like life is bigger than just me. A lot of people live their life, they wake up in the morning, they go to work, they do their 9 to 5, they come home, and maybe they have a hobby, maybe they don't, and then they go to bed and they just repeat that, right? And I think it's huge for people to have a purpose in life, that their life means something bigger and it goes deeper than just that, in that normal routine. And to dream, it's okay to dream. And it's okay to dream big,
Yeah.
And a failure is not necessarily a failure if you're pursuing something.
That's the shrink to grow.
Right?
Yeah.
And so adversity and perseverance and all these different things. But here's the thing, anything you do that is worth anything is worth doing right. Anything that you do that is worth doing should be done with excellence, right? And so, of course, my life, a little bit about me as far as my story. Mm-hmm. And I'm a person of faith. I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, and I live my life to that, and I have since I was, since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I've never really walked away from that. I believe that the Lord gave us life to live and live well and enjoy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why I do these things. That's why I have hobbies. That's why I go hunt. I do these things because I believe that God allowed us these things so that we can enjoy life.
Yeah.
Also, I believe that when you do those things, do them with excellence. So if it's Whiskey River handles and all the things that you do, you set yourself apart by providing quality over quantity.
That is the top. The top thing is
That's exactly
quality.
right.
Yeah.
So quality is important. I think anybody that produces something from their own hands or from their own personality and spirit that's worth anything should be done with excellence. So my mantra when it comes, if you were talking about that earlier, mm-hmm. my mantra is do everything as unto the Lord. The scripture says that. Do everything as unto the Lord. Mm-hmm. So if I'm doing whatever it is, and I do it as unto the Lord, then I'm going to do it with excellence. So then the mantra would be do it with excellence.
Yeah.
So if that's living my life, if that's parenting, if that's my wife and I in our relationship, do it with excellence. Mm-hmm. If that's growing as an individual in my knowledge of how to control self-discipline, patience, long-suffering, or enjoying life, do it with excellence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of
I like
what it is.
I like it. So where can people find you?
So Mountain Path Woodsman
on
TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah. Okay.
Mountain Path Woodsman, and that's kind of where I'm at on Facebook as well. And so I'd love Mountain Path Woodsman.
Okay, on Facebook. Okay.
Yeah.
I will put links to that in the description of the video so that people can find you and see your stuff. His TikTok account is he's got help from his daughter, and she's good at this. So he showed me some videos that had some very impressive numbers for it. So I'm excited to see more of that. If I can encourage it.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. I need to do that too.
Yeah. So we're gonna give you. Well, let's do a walk around. I'll grab the camera and we'll. You can show this, maybe the chicken coop.
Yeah. Sounds good.
So here's the oak. David, you can do.
So a lot of trees that I've got around here, for some reason we've been losing a lot. So there's some I've had the Forestry Service come out and look over our trees, and I'm losing trees from root rot, some fungus, and then a disease that's been hitting a lot of my red oaks, and so I've been losing a lot. So we've had some tornadoes recently, lost some of these trees that were going down anyway. So here we are, we're going to process them.
This is the woodshed. Let's look at the woodshed here.
So the woodshed, I didn't have plans for that. I just had it in my head, and I just built it. And I knew I wanted a spot to be able to put tools, but I also wanted the spot for my woodshed. And so I just built it just from thinking.
Yeah. It definitely can hold more than 2 cords.
Yeah.
I sitting next to it, I was like, this holds not that much more than 2 cords. But yeah, you can fit probably 6 in there.
Yeah.
So here's the chicken coop.
Yeah, chicken coop. This is all oak milled. I still got some work to do on it. My little board and battens, because the wood was wet when I got it, and so when I put it together, it's now shrunk, and I'm going to have to rework some of my battens and things. But we were talking about the watering system. I'll kind of show that to you. So comes off the guttering here into the rain barrel, and out of the bottom into the little 6-volt pump and into this PVC pipe. On the end of this PVC pipe, see, this is where they get their water. On the end of the PVC pipe, there's another hose that comes back, filters through here. So in the winter time, when I add power to this, it'll power the pump, but then I have this pump heater, or the tank heater as well. And I just cut a hole right here and notched it, and I have that, and I just leave that in there all summer long and winter long. And then it just...
That's just a normal rain barrel, like
Yeah.
you'd buy at like Home Depot or something.
Yeah, so the tank heater is okay for, it's like plastic trough, things
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, for like a livestock.
Yeah.
For a livestock tank. Okay.
Yep.
And this is the run that he's gonna be redoing when he
Yeah.
figures out how he wants to do it.
So the way that I feed them is I have this trash can, and it'll hold 3 50-pound bags, and it's gravity fed, and they just stick their head in there and eat that out of there. And it'll last, 3 bags will last me about 2 weeks.
All right, well, thanks for watching, and thanks for having us. Thanks
Absolutely.
for hosting.
Thanks, Brandon. I appreciate it.
It's nice to meet you in person.
Absolutely.
So, see you guys.